So you got a van back in May.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come about finding this van? And please describe it for everyone who doesn't know.
Okay, will do. So really what spurred I've always kind of wanted to live in a van, and I lived in a bus last summer. But what really
Wait, hold on. A bus?
Yeah, I lived in a school bus.
Okay, we're going to have to talk about that too.
We'll talk about that in a minute. But what brought this on is I got a job in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, which, if you know, rent is not cheap there. So I got this job to work as a photographer, taking photos of all the people whitewater rafting on the Snake over the course of the summer. And I was like, man, that sounds awesome. I love the Tetons, love Jackson Hole. I want to live there. It's like, but I probably can't afford rent there. I mean, I could, but I'd have like no money left. And so I was like, oh, I'll live in a van. Like, that'll do it. And so I started to like pour over Facebook Marketplace and KSL. And I actually put up an ad on KSL that was like, I'm a photographer. I'm looking for a van. I'm willing to like trade anything or pay people for, like, I'll shoot a wedding for you. I don't remember exactly what it said, but I was like offering all these things because I just wanted a van so bad. And I finally found this 1999 Chevy Astro van, classic green color.
It's a beaut.
It's called the Green Bean now. It had a broken window, and the battery was like shot basically in the ad, it said. But the engine ran great, and it had like 160,000 miles on it. So I was like, you know what? Let's try it. And I actually didn't have a car at the time. I was riding my bike everywhere. And so I contacted this guy, and I was like, I would love to look at this van. It was listed for $1,500, I think. And I was like, that's great. Like,
that's a steal.
I'll take that any day. I got to buy a new battery, maybe replace a window, whatever. So I got on my bike. I rode to the Front Runner station because I was living in Provo at the time. This was in Ogden. So I rode the Front Runner up to Ogden. I took my bike. I think I rode 11 miles to the guy's place. And like, I didn't know if I was going to buy the van, but I was like on my bike, and like, if I hadn't bought the van, I would have been like stuck in Ogden because I was looking at it in the evening, and I think the train would have stopped running by the time I got back. So it was like a little bit of a risky play. But I got there. He had bought a new battery to put in. He's like, I just bought a new battery to put in it just to be nice, basically. The guy's parents were the ones that owned it, and they were the original owners. So there's only been one other owner before me. And the guy that owned it previously, his dad was a volunteer firefighter, and he drove that thing to Guatemala twice because he volunteered down there to fight wildfires. So my van has been to Guatemala twice. There might be drugs in the sidewall. I don't know. I should probably look. But yeah, anyways, I looked at it, and I was like, I mean, there's tons of quirks, but I don't care. Like, this is my opportunity to live in a van in Jackson Hole. And it ran. I test drove it, and I was like, sure, that's great. I was like, I offered him $1,000, and he was like, sure. I was like, okay. So I got $500 less, and he had put a new battery in it. Just because the guy was nice, and I told him like what I wanted to do. I was like, I'm probably gonna like try to convert this so I can live out of it in Jackson Hole. And he actually knew the guy, my boss in Jackson Hole, so he was friends with him. So I think that helped me out get a deal on this van. So, and it still runs. I've put 16,000 miles on it. The radiator did blow up on me one time when I was driving over Teton Pass, and I think that blew up on
you when I was coming up to try to see you.
That's exactly when it happened. And we got that fixed, and ever since then, it's been purring like a kitten.
Wow! So you got that van for $1,000.
$1,000.
I mean, you can't buy a camera
for
that cheap.
Yeah, true. my camera setup is more expensive than my home.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so I had a yard sale to like, I was totally committed before I even had a van. I sold basically all my earthly possessions in this yard sale, which actually made enough money to cover my purchase of this van. Because I got rid of so much stuff, and now literally all of my physical belongings on this earth are in that van.
That's crazy.
So
that's such a cool story, though.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
That's
it's
cool.
got good history.
Yeah, it's kind of got to be a cool thing to have, you know, a mobile home like that you can take anywhere.
So nice.
I mean, you mentioned that van's been to Guatemala. Do you have any interest in driving it like to a place like that?
Dude, I don't think I'll ever
You don't
drive
think it'll
it
last?
quite that far. But yeah, it's doing good. So
That's crazy. So tell me what, you know, what it's like living in a van full time.
it's interesting because it's not as glamorous as social media makes it look a lot of the time. I mean, there are definitely parts of it that are like
Yeah, you can wake up
awesome.
in cool places.
Yeah, exactly. But there are parts where like a lot of times you're sleeping in a Walmart parking lot or you're sleeping on some random residential street that you get away with parking overnight at. Or just the fact that like you have nowhere to store things really, like big things. So you can't have a lot of like,
Yeah, you got to be selective
Things.
with what you have.
yeah. And like showering in the bathroom and let me put it this way, like there's some people that have vans that are like rigged out really nice. They've got a bathroom, they've got a shower, all this
$100,
stuff.
$200.
Mine is
$1,000
about
van.
as basic as you can get. And that mainly is because I would consider myself a pretty low maintenance person. And I think you have to be to live in a van full time or whatever vehicle. But like, yeah, I don't have a bathroom in there. I don't have a shower. So I shower at friends' houses or I shower at rec centers or the gym or wherever I can find a place. When I was living in Jackson, because there's not a whole lot of places you can shower up there, like publicly. Like they don't have any like public showers or really gyms that are affordable anyway. And so a lot of time I would actually like bathe in the Snake River.
Nice.
And that's where
All
that's
natural.
where I'd wash off, which is freezing cold especially in the early season. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the gist of it. It's got a lot of pros, but it's also like you got to be willing to kind of live in the dirt, essentially. Dirtbag is an apt name for people that live in a van.
Yeah. Now, is this living out of a van full time? Is that something you want to do for a long time? I mean, because that's, you know, it definitely seems like something that could get old fast
Sure.
if you're not passionate about that. And obviously,
Right.
you got photography to help get you through a lot of that too, because that's what's pushing you to go to all these places and do this. But like, is this something you think you could do for another year, 5 years?
I definitely can see myself doing it for another year or two, like full time. I think there's going to be some part of me that's like for the next like 10 years is going to want to do it like
On and off.
part time. Yeah. So like have a place that I can crash at, but like to go on like a road trip for 3 weeks in my van or something. That's something that I'm going to want for a while because there's just so many places I want to see.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the cool parts about having a van, especially if you can find another place where you could stay. You know, the Bushwhacker B&B, we got rooms.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you have that, and especially if you have like a job that you can work at least somewhat remotely, you can just go on a quick little road trip
Yeah.
anywhere you want.
Yep.
You know, wake up in some cool mountains. That's a
love
pretty
that.
cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially if you're into all the outdoor stuff as well. Let's backtrack really quick.
Okay.
You mentioned you lived out of a bus.
I did. Yeah.
Can you tell me about that? I don't know how to ask a question off that.
Did you not know this?
I think I've heard of it,
Okay.
but tell me about this.
Essentially, last summer, well, okay, a year and a half ago in January of 2021, me and my friends, so I lived in this bus with 5 of my friends.
And this is like a school bus.
A school bus, 35-foot school bus, found it in Hurricane, Utah in January of 2021. We purchased this bus just a little more expensive than my van at $2,800.
That's not bad.
Amazing. Run perfectly. Like we never did really any like major mechanical work on that thing besides like the regular maintenance stuff. But we bought it, and so me and my friend Michael who runs this organization called the Outdoor Adventure Crew based out of Utah Valley, and they like run trips. It's not for profit. They just run trips for anybody that wants to get into the outdoors. Basically, they take care of all the logistics planning. So they like get the place to stay. They take care of like transportation and food and like planning out all the activities, and you just pay a flat fee. You get to come along, and it's not for profit, so it's pretty cheap, especially when you're going on a trip with like 15 people. It splits costs. Great. So I had been working as part of that organization, really good friends with the head of that, Michael, and we had always both wanted to go to like every national park in the U.S. because like national parks are like
They're cool.
Yeah.
Kinda. If
Yeah.
you're into that.
Yeah, big like outdoor granola thing that I'd always been into. So when COVID happened, it made it so people could work remotely, and which is what he was doing. And he was like, we could totally do this. We just work remotely, like on the road, and go on like a 3-month trip, visit every national park in the lower 48. And so we're like, we should do it in like, we're thinking about like an RV or whatever. And I was like, dude, it would be so cool if we converted a school bus into like our own RV, if we did the renovations and did that. Like it would be so cool. And it's something like when we were planning, it was fairly unique. There's like, you see schoolies now every once in a while, but I was like, and because of that, it'll probably do well, like on social media. And so, well, we got that bus, renovated it in like 2 months. We left in April, like mid-April of 2021. We did a lot of planning for our route that we were taking and like places we were going to stay and all this stuff. But yeah, for 3 months, I lived in there with 5 other adult human beings in this pretty tiny space when you have that many people. And we visited every national park in the lower 48. Although I was the only one that was in the bus the entire trip for the duration of the trip. Everybody else either went home at one point or were hospitalized or various things. But I was the only one in the bus for the entire trip. And that was mainly because I was the one creating all the content. And so like I couldn't really leave because no one else was going to do that. None of them are like photographers or videographers. So
Gotcha. Well, that's a pretty cool story.
it's pretty fun.
So you renovated this bus. What exactly did you do to the inside of it to make it livable for 6 people?
Yeah. So, I mean, we ripped out everything in the beginning, and then so in the back, the guy that owns it, he's married. So there's a couple in the back. So there's in the very back of the bus, there's an elevated king bed, and under it, there's storage space that you can access from the back door of the bus. We call it the garage. And then just in front of that, on the right side, or the driver's side, there was a bathroom, an enclosed bathroom with like a composting toilet that we could use whenever. On the passenger side, there was locker space and like cupboards for our food on top. And then in front of that, there were on both sides. Well, in front of the bathroom, there was a kitchen countertop with a sink, running water, and then cupboard space above that and below. And then in front of that and the lockers on the passenger side, there was 2 sets of our own custom bunk beds, which they basically, in the daytime, the bunk beds actually fold up and they set on a desk that they worked at during the day because they're working remotely. Everybody else was. And so our bunk beds folded up, turned into a desk during the day that they worked at. Then in front of that, there was couches with storage underneath where we kept like our batteries and power stuff. And then there was the driver's seat up front.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That's a cool experience.
So
you hit every national park in the lower 48
Indeed.
on that trip in 3 months?
87 days. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet. So it's fair to say that you are well-traveled, at least
in the U.S.
Yeah, in the U.S.
Very.
Yes.
Yeah.
What of those national parks was your favorite one?
Yeah, it's such a hard
I
question
know.
to answer.
I understand. I'm going to put you on the spot.
My cliche answer, I always like to say, would be Yosemite. I think it's just got like everything, and what it does have is majestic. Like it's an incredible place. Outside of that, my other favorite would probably be Olympic National Park or Glacier. They're really close.
I like Glacier a lot.
But Olympic I like because the diversity there is just crazy to me. So there's like beautiful waterfalls that almost feel, in the summer at least, they feel like tropical because it's like so green. And there's actually a rainforest in Olympic National Park. And those are amazing. But then you go on a 45-minute drive to the top of Hurricane Ridge, it's called, and you feel like you're in Alaska in the mountains because it's just mountains on mountains on mountains. Or there's like really beautiful alpine lakes there. Or you can also go to the coast where it's like rocky kind of Oregon coast. And so there's just so much variety there in such like a close space that one would really impress me a lot.
Gotcha. Now, of all the ones that you have not gone to yet,
Okay.
What is the highest on your list?
It is called Gates of the Arctic National Park. It's in Alaska. It's the least visited national park. I think they get on average about 5,000 visitors a year. It has no facilities, no trails of any kind. It's like you have to charter. Well, there's a few ways to get in. You can like hike in over a really long distance. You can charter a plane to land on a lake, and then you also hike in. And once you're there, you go wherever you want. You just explore. It's just like so rugged and raw, which I think is really cool, and obviously jaw-droppingly beautiful because it's Alaska.
Yeah, we have mentioned that park on the show before.
Kai, I'm guessing.
Kai was the one that brought it up.
Yep.
And it sounds like an incredible experience. Because, you go to a lot of these places, and maybe some of the bigger ones, Yosemite, Zion, they're just busy. There's people everywhere.
Huge, yeah.
But I guarantee you go to Gates of the Arctic, you're not going to see a soul.
No, not unless you brought them with you.
Yeah. Like you're going to see whoever's with you, and that is it.
Yep.
Like that would be one crazy experience.
Definitely.
And certainly a story that would rival most that anyone's going to have.
For sure.
In terms of outdoor experiences.